Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, building experiences that connect, remove friction, and deliver insights. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Liam Martin. Liam is the co-founder and CMO of Time Doctor, one of the most popular productivity software platforms used by brands today. He is the co-organizer of the Running Remote conference and the co-author of the book Running Remote. Liam is an avid proponent of remote work and has published works in Forbes, Wired, The Wall Street Journal, and many others. He travels around the world a few times a year, usually spends time in Austin, Las Vegas, and Ubud. He currently encourages others to work remotely while he travels. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Liam Martin.
Thanks for having me, Ed. I'm actually going to Lisbon next week for a couple weeks, which will be fantastic. It's my first time.
Outstanding. Well, Liam, why do you do what you do?
So for me, I feel any entrepreneur that's very passionate about a particular subject, they really want to put that dent in the universe. They want to change the world in a positive way. And for me, I think that remote work is the cross that I've bared over the last 20 years. I've been working remotely for almost 20 years, way before it was cool, before we heard about anything connected to COVID. I was working remotely, and I recognized that this was not only really advantageous to myself, but it was also really advantageous for the people that I hired, that I worked with, because they had the freedom and autonomy to be able to work wherever they want, whenever they wanted. And it just provides you with such a fantastic opportunity to craft the life that you want and not get stuck in the distraction factories that I call the office world.
So tell me about your book, Running Remote.
Yeah, so we spent the last year and a half, and we, meaning me and my co-founder, Rob Rawson, writing a book about the methodologies of remote work. So I was telling you beforehand, I've seen 27 books come out this quarter about remote work. Everyone has a remote work book right now, but it's all about whether you should use Slack or Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Google Meet. And when people ask me that question, I respond by saying, you don't even know the question that you should ask me to get the answer that you need. And so what we've written is focusing entirely on the methodology of working remotely. And what we discovered is that these companies that were remote before the pandemic, they all had this one singular thing in common, which we're calling asynchronous management, which is the ability to be able to manage people without directly interacting with them synchronously through Zoom or through face-to-face meetings. We minimize as much of that communication as humanly possible, and we maximize the platform actually becoming the manager, which is a very different concept. But once you figure it out, you can scale your business faster than ever before.
And what have you found about people making that transition? How have people been able to make that successful transition? What changes in their brain? What has to click for them in order to get out of the what I'll call the how-based questions? How do you do it? And really more the what matters question, which is what are we doing here, and what's the purpose behind this?
So the biggest thing that people really don't recognize is immediacy. So inside of remote-first organizations that are asynchronous, immediacy does not exist. So there is no, I need this by this time. And if you really actually look at any companies today, we have something in our Slack chat called Red Alert Chat, which is, we're nerds. So it's a Star Trek reference, which is shields up, we're in big trouble, something is going to happen that completely changes the business. And when someone posts a message in that chat, it rings everyone's phones because it really is a red alert and everyone needs to get up regardless of what time zone they're in. That red alert chat gets used about once a year on average because there actually aren't any real emergencies inside of companies. But unfortunately, your managers or the owner of the business, they have this culture of immediacy, which just creates an environment where people are constantly distracted from achieving what my friend Cal Newport calls deep work, and instead trying to put out fires and not actually getting anything done. When you remove that immediacy and you allow people to embrace deep work on an organizational level, your company accelerates significantly faster than any of your competitors.
Yeah, I heard it expressed a while back as poor planning on your part does not create an urgency on my part.
That's a good one. I'm going to take that one, actually. That's great.
Because it really, and that's what it's mostly about, is it's people who haven't had really the time to think through stuff and then create all of these fire drills in people who work for them. And that's just really just a poor cultural environment as well. It's a toxic environment in many cases.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why I call them distraction factories. They are constantly trying to stop you from achieving what is deep work. And it's not necessarily their fault. If you look at any MBA course or any MBA book, it's all about interpersonal communication. But because we live in the 21st century, the vast majority of what a manager did even 10 years ago can actually be delegated to a platform. It can be delegated to a project management system or to an email system or to a task management system. And you don't necessarily need that manager anymore to be able to simply communicate information to the next chain up in the org. This allows you to, and when we studied people that were running asynchronous organizations at scale, we discovered they have, on average, a 50% thinner managerial layer than their on-premise synchronous counterparts. So there are more people doing work in asynchronous organizations than there are people telling people how to do work inside of these organizations. And that's a massive advantage when you think about how you can scale those organizations to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people.
I've been playing with this idea for a while, curious to get your response to it. But I think there's a cult of efficiency in business today. It's about how can we be, quote, most efficient. And the great Peter Drucker made a great insight, had some great insight. First of all, when he named his book The Effective Executive, not the Efficient Executive, because efficiency is doing the thing right. Effectiveness is doing the right thing. And I think oftentimes what happens is we get so caught up in this cult of efficiency, these, excuse my French, Lean Six Sigma guru Ninja Turtle black belt people who are so obsessed with focus and measurement on efficiency that we lose sight of the fact that if we're doing something that's ineffective, it doesn't matter how efficient we are.
Sure.
It's got to be effective. So thoughts on that concept?
Well, running in the other direction is way worse than standing still. So it's really important that people divide being busy from actually doing something that's going to move the business forward. That's actually the third big tenet that we have inside of our organization, which is detailed metrics. So we have actionable, quantifiable, longitudinal metrics for absolutely everything inside of our organization. And because of that, that's what we measure ourselves by. And not only that, we give everyone access to those quantifiable metrics. So Ed, you know what your metrics are, and I know what my metrics are, but we both get to see them. And I can see, Ed is not actually executing properly on his metrics, and Liam is. Maybe I should talk to Liam to figure out how to do my metrics in a better, more efficient way. But it is really choosing those metrics is the core part, because I think being effective versus being productive is, or whatever your
efficient, yeah,
efficient. Thank you. That's a real core differentiator, because when I go into corporate America today, unfortunately, a lot of those guys are just simply running, and sometimes they don't know which direction they're running in. They actually could be running completely away from the target that they're supposed to have in their crosshairs.
And Liam, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours, and why are they a hero?
So this one actually changed quite a few years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago. The biggest hero that I have is my buddy Fahim. So Fahim is somebody that I met in 2019, and he lives in Dhaka in Bangladesh, and he became a top 5 designer on Upwork and on Fiverr. And he's a top 5 designer in the entire planet, but he can only move his hand. He has muscular dystrophy. So And nothing is said on his profiles about his disability, but because remote work provides proof of work as the focus, not necessarily the package that that person is inside of, he's become incredibly successful and literally has pulled not only himself, but his entire family from working on $1 a day to making tens of thousands of dollars per month. So he's an incredible inspiration. Whenever I get frustrated or tired about promoting a book, as an example, I think to myself, wow, okay, well, Fahim could do it. I definitely can get up and do that 7th podcast of the day.
And lastly, Liam, how can somebody contact you?
Best place to contact me would be go to runningremote.com, check out all of the content that we have on there. And if you want to interact with me personally, youtube.com/runningremote. We have all of our talks up there for free, so you can get a masterclass on remote work. If you can't afford access to the book or to the conference, go to the YouTube channel. It's completely free there.
All right. Liam Martin, co-founder and CMO of Time Doctor and co-author of Running Remote. Thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.